Now, the Bram Weinstein Show on Washington's new home for sports, ESPN 630.
Hey, babies. Hey, babies. Hey, babies. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. 2 more wins to the playoffs, boys. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. Did you enjoy me putting out the lightning? Hi, everyone. What's up?
Wait,
Happy Monday,
do you want to talk about
everybody.
the Wizards, too? Should we talk about worst team in franchise history? Do we want to
Oh,
talk
we're going
about
to start there. Yeah, I'm going to start on the NBA, actually.
Okay.
The Commanders actually did a bunch of stuff. Well, not a bunch of stuff. They hired another.
Yes.
They did another move that is just a signal of they're just trying to bolster the front office and the operations of the team, which I'll get to at 4 o'clock because the one and only Sal Palantonio is going to join us at 4:25 today to promote his annual NFL draft show, which takes place on ESPN. And we're going to have him on. So I want to lead into with all the football stuff that's going on, including all the receiver news that's happening today. Position of great interest to me for day 2 of the draft for Washington now. And spoiler alert, it's tight end. I think expect a tight end to go relatively high for Washington, that's prioritizing now, which leads me to the tackle conundrum, which I'll get to at 4 o'clock with directional. What are they going to do? They have too many things that they need with this particular draft. So we'll have to see what is the item that's going to be kind of left unfinished business when we get through the draft, because I don't think they can get to everything, honestly.
Yeah,
so we'll talk about all that at 4 o'clock. 3:45, the new athletic director at my alma mater, American University, JM Caparro, is going to join us as well to talk about taking over at a mid-major school in the time of NIL and the portal, which I'm sure is a very interesting time to become a first-time AD. So I'm going to talk to him about that and what he is thinking about. And then I'll ask him what I ask any administrator at AU, and I already know the answer to this. Will you ever get a football team? And the answer will be no, but I will put him on the spot.
Yeah.
But let's start with the NBA. I'll get to the Wizards in a minute. Their season ended. They do have the same odds as the Pistons to get the most to get the first overall pick.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So let's see what happens. There is no Wemby, unfortunately. So, I kind of landed a few weeks ago on I kind of don't want them to have that now because I don't want another Kwame Brown situation, honestly.
Right,
Where you go into it and you make a draft pick like this. There's not the obvious great clearly franchise-changing option at the top of the draft. And while that person may become that kind of stinks. You have these opportunities don't come around that often. You hope that you land in a year where you're getting Victor Wembanyama. That's not what's going to happen this time. So I guess we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, no, exactly. But you can look around the draft in years past, and there have been guys that have been drafted. Look at, Jokic. Look at guys that, you don't expect to be good, and you can still find a player. So, you got to hope that.
Yeah, listen, Gilbert Arenas was a second-round pick. Jokic was a second-round pick.
Right,
Jokic was fat and out of shape, but a second-round pick. So you don't know. And then it was funny. I remember, I always remember, don't get too mad at the Bullets Wizards for the Kwame Brown thing. That wasn't a very good draft. But then we went back and looked at it, and there were plenty of players that had great careers. Yeah, obviously, there's going to be 10 to 20 guys that had great careers. None of them, though, you named anybody, none of them were LeBron James or Kevin Durant or anything like that. But there were, obviously, in the end, better options.
Yeah.
So, let's see where they land after the lottery, and we'll see where they are. In the meantime, I am following Chase Hughes today, who, God love him. Boy, does he just, he just, no matter the circumstances, he is there. He is there forever.
That's right.
They ought to make an award for him for coverage of this team at this level for this long. He, Buckhants, a few others that are just lifers. Chris Miller, that are Glenn Consor. Yes. They should have
Dave
a
Johnson,
Hall of
all of
Fame.
them.
Dave Johnson. Oh, my God. Dave Johnson. Over 25, 26 years of calling their games.
Yes.
And to enthusiastically continually do it for this long. Oh, God love you. I'll give you the Beatrice Award of God love you for that because they've done it. And I've been following Chase Hughes this afternoon because they're having all the exit interviews because the Wizards season ended yesterday with a loss to Boston. And here are a few of the notes that he has given out as the Wizards head into the summer. Bilal Coulibaly, who of course missed the last 6 weeks or so of the season because he broke his wrist, said, we'll see if he's going to play in the Summer League this year because he's trying to make the French Olympic team. And the goal is to be on that team. And there are actually a couple of very heavy draft prospects that are from France again this year. Obviously, Wembanyama, I would assume, is going to play on that team. Rudy Gobert plays on that team. Think about that for a second. Wembanyama and Gobert on that team, they might be a tough out. Actually, like this time, the French team might be like the Spanish team was in the past when they had the Gasol brothers and all that.
Sure,
like, I'm sure taking them lightly. And I don't know if you've seen Wembanyama down the stretch here, but he looks every bit the part of the freak that we thought we were getting when he came into the season. Like every highlight reel of him now is utterly ridiculous, like clowning NBA players now.
No, it's stupid highlights. Like they're just ridiculous. So yeah, no, he's not that there was really doubt with him. It was tough sledding at the beginning, I think, for some people because the hype was so big for him. But now he's making these dumb highlights that just are going viral essentially. So no, he's real deal.
There was one that I saw recently. I don't remember which game it was, and it was like whoever does these clips that are like somebody always does these clips that are like this is unbelievable, and like he had one where he runs down the court from behind and like cartoonishly blocks somebody, off the glass, then runs the other way and gets an alley-oop, then runs back on transition again and blocks somebody else. And I'm like, what is that? He's. And if that's what it's going to regularly be, he will change the game.
That's right. Yes, 100%.
All right, so Coulibaly is saying maybe Vegas, probably Team France if they'll take him.
All right. And if he doesn't do summer, I'm fine with that. He showed enough in his rookie year that I'm very much like, you don't really need to do that.
I don't think he needs it.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Let's see. Corey Kispert, who I've seen some people kind of put out there on Twitter recently, like, I don't know, we're in the midst of this rebuild. He looks okay. Why don't we trade him? And I agree with that, actually. Like, his contract must be coming up soon, right? He's been in the league 3 years, right?
Yeah, I think this is 3.
So he's not a long-term future player for us, is he? Considering at the state of where we are, does he have any value on the open market this summer? Because if that's the case, I'm all right with that. Let's go.
It depends what their thinking is because look, they had the worst record they've ever had in franchise history, yet everyone still is kind of saying Kispert's turned into a solid player. Denny has actually turned into a really solid player, which I think you kind of have to have that argument of do you want to have him be a part of the future or not? Like,
I do want Denny.
So I agree.
So
I agree.
So since we're having this conversation, I do want Denny here. I do think he's part of the future. Kispert, to me, is someone who clearly has improved. He talked about that today, but I don't see him as a big focal point piece of the future of this team, and therefore I'm open there to gathering assets if that's the case, before paying him, for sure.
Yeah, I would say see if you can snag somebody's draft pick next year for him. If you can, but at the same time, they are accomplishing what they set out to do, and that was not be good this year. There's no rush to trade him. Like, there's no like I get why, but
I'd have to look. Like, what's he got? 1 year left on his contract? Because that's probably all he has. I'll have to look.
I'll look it up for you. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm just saying, I kind of fall in line with what you like to say a lot of the times. Are we just trading someone to trade them? Because if that's the case, then I'd rather just ride it out, essentially, is what I'm saying.
I don't want to do the Rui thing again, where it's like we're giving up on a player for nothing. Like, you're going to give me a second-round draft pick in 2058. Like, why am I even doing that? Why?
So
when that second round pick comes up, people are going to laugh. I can't wait till that day comes because I think the second round pick is in like 2028 or 2029. And they're going to be like, when they announce on the air, this was a trade from 7 years ago, people are going to be like, really? Oh, okay.
He has one more year left after this and then a qualifying offer year in 25-26. So really he has 2 years left on his contract.
Okay, all right, so there's no rush.
Yeah.
But I did see some people suggest, like, maybe it's worth dangling because let's be serious here. By the time this team hopefully has enough players to be competitive again, are we really paying him? Like, no, of course not. Right. So, I'll buy that. Let's see. Denny. Chase Hughes tweeted this. Denny was asked what he hopes to improve on this summer, and he said this: I can be better off ball defensively. I've seen the potential. I know it's there. On offense, I can handle the ball better and be able to go both ways. I got to tell you, like a couple of years ago, I watched him and I went, I think this guy could become a really, really good defensive player. I don't think I will ever envision him becoming an effective offensive player without, forget maybe an off night here or there where he puts up 20 plus points because, the ball ends up in his hands in the right spot on the court, or he gets some transition buckets or whatever it may be. But him generating offense or becoming that kind of generational, like generating offense player, I didn't see it coming. His improvement has been dramatic. So I'm all in on Denny as a piece of the foundation of the future for sure. And they already extended him and they got him at a good number. So he ain't going anywhere. And I like what I've seen from him. And I've seen massive improvement. So I stand corrected on him, honestly.
Yeah, no. I think he is a part of the future. Like I think he's
no
a
doubt.
legitimate player. And here's the thing that's been good with him too. He's been consistent defensively. I mean, since the beginning. And so the fact is, you're actually seeing him develop and add other tools into his arsenal, and he knows that he has to do that too. Like that's a little bit of the shift here from, I guess, years past. Like this organization seems intent on actually developing the young talent that they have, and what I'm getting at is not just having guys quote unquote develop by showing up for another year. It seems like even like with what Chase has been saying with these guys, even they are acknowledging what they actually need to improve on. And very specifically, like this isn't like John Wall saying he needs to improve his jump shot. We knew that the second he got drafted here, and it never really improved. It seems like there's something going on with developmental wise that even they are in the players' ears of saying this is what we want you to work on and this is what we need you to acknowledge to work on too.
That's the symbol of a good franchise. Like the players are supposed to get better. In the NBA, nobody has any patience for it because they walk in as first round picks and they're stars at their colleges or whatever, or European leagues or whatever. Sure. Yeah. And the expectation is they walk in the door and they're going to be great. Yeah. And we just mentioned Jokic. It took him 3 foot. Nobody knew he was in the league for a couple of years before he actually turned into the player that he turned into. Mm-hmm. And in the case of the Wizards, like I think that's been a massive missing element here for a very long time, that there has not been the right kind of player development. And it started to showcase itself. Winger and Dawkins said that was part of what they were going to do. And it started to kind of showcase itself. And the big part of it was the change that they made with coaching. Tyus Jones was asked about finding a good rhythm under the interim coach, Brian Keefe. And he said this: we were competing way more and you could feel it. You could see it from the outside looking in, but you could also feel it inside the locker room. I mean, you just had to do a little scoreboard watching to see what was going on early in the year. And I remember talking about it going like, I knew they were going to be bad and I'm okay with them losing, but this is embarrassing. Like they're not even an NBA team right now when you're losing 132-90. Like that's, and it's happening. It's one thing when it happens, on the second of a back-to-back on the road against a good team. It's another thing when it happens 3 times a week. Right, like what in the world is going on here? And it was obvious things had changed. They were much more competitive. They beat a couple of good teams along the way. They were very competitive in general, but they lost most of their games. And then a couple of nights got away from them, like it did early in the season. But it's okay if it happens every so often, a bad team that gets away from them a little bit. You just want to see the strides. And it was obvious that things changed. So I think some of this is player development, and some of it was, I mean, I don't mean to be offensive to Wes here, but they had to change the coach. Like, it became so abundantly clear that they had to change the coaching that once they did that, all of a sudden, all these other things started to happen in their favor. And they became at least a watchable product and one where you're going, okay, night to night, they're at least going to be competitive.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like, I think you hit it on the head, but what it basically started to become too was, okay, you're going to lose to Boston by 30, fine. There's a straight up roster discrepancy there. But when they were starting to lose by 20 and 32, I don't know, Miami. We know Miami puts out a good effort, but you shouldn't be blown out by them by that many points. And then it was also, I don't think it was the Pistons, but I want to say it was like a Charlotte game early on in the year, and they lost by like 30. And it was like, whoa. Like, we know you're not going to be good, but not to that team. Like, you actually have more name players than that team does. And then it was also, you didn't mention it, but it was the Jordan Poole stuff too, where, yeah, you told us he was going to have control, but like, to let him just freestyle an entire offense in the NBA was a little ridiculous there, where he had an embarrassing highlight, it seemed like, every other game at the beginning of the year. And then you finally, settled him down. And you also put him on the bench too, which, was probably also necessary. But yeah, there was clearly not only not a buy-in, but a disregard to any kind of structure that first half of the year. And yes, something had to change with Wes. And it's unfortunate with Wes because, I get it, he's a name and he deserved a shot, but it clearly just wasn't working with him.
No. I'm just looking at the schedule now. When they were 3-15, okay, they gave up 130 plus points in 9 games.
Yeah.
So half of the games were 130 plus, and in 4 of those 9, it was 140 plus. That's ridiculous.
And remember,
so
Wes was brought
that's
in
just
to be
utterly ridiculous.
Remember, Wes was brought in to be a defensive head coach too.
Correct.
So that was even the worst part. It was like, what you're supposed to be bringing to the table, the number one trait that you've got, is not translating. In fact, it's a weakness now. So yeah, it was really ugly. Just really ugly.
Here's what Brian Keefe said. He said the Wizards' biggest upsets were the high points of his time as a head coach: a win versus Milwaukee, a win versus at Miami. They beat the Bulls when they were undermanned. And he said this: we know there's more work to do, but there was growth there. I agree with that. I actually started paying close. I'm a sucker for the NBA. I'm dying for a good NBA team. I after the start of the season, I'm like, forget it. I just tuned them out. It was so embarrassingly bad. I'm like, what is even the point of this? And then once they made the change and things kind of settled down a little bit, I did watch. They were at least largely competitive.
Yeah.
And I want to credit Keefe for that, and I want to credit whoever in the locker room that kept it together. I think there was some pride in the locker room that took over with some of these players, and so that was a good sign too. They settled down Poole. I think the big moment of the season, Keefe put him on the bench, let him be a 6-man.
Yep.
It actually worked wonders for him. He became a volume scorer again. The meme moments were few and far between, not as much as it was early in the season. And I think we saw kind of the makings of, all right, everybody, settle down. I know this is going to be bad. It doesn't need to be that bad. And you guys aren't so awful that you should get boat raced every night. You're not an NAIA school taking on Kentucky. Come on. And things calmed down. So I think Keefe did, by my estimation, under the circumstances, a very good job. Honestly, would I like to have won a little bit more? Sure. Were they capable of it? Not really. And you know what? At least things settled down. And generally, on a semi-nightly basis, they were far more competitive. And to his point, pulled off a couple of games where I was like, I can't believe they won that.
Sure.
So
yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah. They actually became watchable again. That's really what it all settled down to. There was not a reason to tune into them for the first half of the season before the All-Star break. And now everyone kind of saw it down the stretch. The effort was finally there, which is, honestly, as I always say, that's all that people really care about if you're not going to be a good team. As long as you're trying hard every night, you can get the benefit of the doubt for a little bit.
Here's Jordan Poole from Chase Hughes, who said they asked him, what do you hope to add this offseason? And he said, I can't tell you that because I'd be giving out the sauce, which is a heck of a quote. Then he said he told the young guys to approach this summer with the mindset of today would be the day we start a new season.
Yep.
I like that. Listen, once they traded Brad and then flipped CP3 and they got Jordan Poole, which I think kind of altered the level of competitiveness. There's no way that was the plan, but they got a volume scorer suddenly on the team. And so I think it kind of threw a little bit of, I think it took what they were planning to do maybe a little more off course than they probably initially intended. I think they just thought that deal was too good. That what are we flipping CP3 for? well, we're getting a young guy who can play at a number that's not crazy. Like, we kind of have to take this. And they did, and it turned out to be a great trade for them, honestly. I think Poole, if he kind of turned, like, there was no way they could move him at the deadline, even if they wanted to at the time. But I do think now that things have settled in for him, the team's gotten to know him, he's gotten to know this team a little bit. If you get a little more of consistency out of him early in the season next year, all doors will be back open for options with him, whether it's to continue to grow with him as a primary player or to move him. But I think he needed a reset. I mean, I thought it was so blatantly obvious how the league felt about him at the deadline when there wasn't even a whiff of an offer for him because of the way he was playing and how out of control he was. Now that we've had this reset, hopefully he kind of gets more into the structure of what they're doing, does more of what he's good at, has his big moments, and then come next January, all things are back on the table with him, whether it's moving forward as a primary piece or potentially getting traded. That's what I hope for him.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think he completely redeemed himself the second half of the year. He also,
I do too.
Like, he also, I think it's underrated now, especially in the NBA, when you have a player of Poole's, I don't want to say stature, but we all know he can score. We all know what his skill set is. He didn't say a peep about being benched. Like, I mean, there's something to be said about that. It also means that he at least had some level of a buy-in, to what the plan was, and even knows, not unlike a player that is, trying to rehab his image. He kind of knows, last shot, I got to kind of do anything I can do to, rehab my image. And the fact that he, went along with it, he was a good soldier. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. You get my respect when that happens, because in this league, you and I have seen it a million times where sometimes guys that don't even deserve to, pipe up about their role in a team do so because it is the NBA. He didn't. And so, yeah, I commend him for that.
Yeah. And, like last week I talked about that piece, the long form piece that ESPN.com did on the Wizards and kind of dealing with a losing locker room. And it started early in the season, and there was a lot from Poole in there that was very introspective, where he's like, I know what people are saying about me. I don't need to be on social media to know this. Like, I know because I know it doesn't look good. Like, I'm aware of that. And I think that's half the battle sometimes. Like, clearly this was uncomfortable. Clearly he was like, he walked in and was like, I got the green light. I can do whatever I want.
Yep.
And he took advantage to that to a degree that was ridiculous. But in pure West form, we saw this with Beal, like the first year, where I'm like, whose team is this? Like, when everything was out of control and there was no defense and nothing was seemingly under any kind of control.
Right.
West didn't seem to reel him in the right way. And once they changed the coaching staff, it appears as if everybody started to get more onto the same page. They defined a role for him by putting him on the bench. That's why I want to go back to, I think Keefe under the circumstances, actually did a pretty good job here.
Yep. And,
if it salvages getting Poole's head back on straight to be professional, understand the context of what they're trying to do, you'll have your moments. Like, there were plenty of times in the second half of the season where, like, at the right moments of the game, he kind of tried to take over and showed off his volume scoring ability at times. So I'm hoping the reset is there for him. And I agree. I think, like, he realizes that he was out of control. I also feel like, to his defense, I don't think he knew what his role was.
Yep.
And I don't think it was defined very well. And this goes back to, I'm not trying to hammer Wes over the head, but it was so abundantly clear they had to get him out of that position, because we're starting from scratch, but you can't start from scratch like that. It was like the hole was somehow getting deeper, almost impossibly. Like, we already knew they were going to be bad. Now they're forming terrible habits. Like, things just had to change.
You and I, though, I was a little harsher on West from the beginning, and that's mainly because I'm a Wizards, I don't even know what we call it now. Like, I'm just a Wizards conspiracy theorist at this point, and where I have to ask the questions that no one else is asking. And I remember even saying in year 2 of Wes, what are we doing here? Because you're supposed to come in defensively, and they're not playing well defensively, and Brad is talking about playing defense, yet not actually playing defense. And then when he got the extension before this year, I was putting my hands up of like, guys, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
He's not the answer. And literally, he wasn't the answer. And like, once again, I don't know what circumstances are, behind the scenes, but he just wasn't a fit, yet they were still just kind of rolling along like everything's fine. No, everything's fine here, guys. Don't look at Wes. And they had to make the change to move him to the front office, which you and I both know that means they needed to have a change. And they, shocker, it was instantaneous with what the difference was. And look, I'll even buy that some of the West stuff, maybe it was a carryover from Beal. Like, you and I know how the NBA works. Beal is, for all intents and purposes, the actual captain of the ship. When you're getting that much money, you can say and do whatever the hell you want. And my thought was...
especially when he goes at a press conference and says, I'll talk to Ted about it.
Right.
You're
exactly.
like, oh, my God.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Really?
Right.
Will you?
Yeah. So when that happens, I think a part of it, too, was that locker room was kind of going, well, we didn't have to listen to you when Brad was here. Why do we have to listen to you when he's gone? I truly think that's my theory there, is that you had to have a whole reset when Brad got traded, and instead you extended him, and it was like, I don't know what you're doing here, guys.
Yeah, the extension made no sense. The extension made no sense, and it felt very like the Rivera Haskins thing, where he's our quarterback. You know that. You have to stick with him, even if Rivera didn't want to. Yep. It was part of the conditions. And it felt like the one condition that Winger and Dawkins got in coming in here was Wes had to be given a chance.
No, I mean, I'll even...
I didn't know, and I was like, okay with that, I guess, because it made no sense that, like, the people who were brought in to wipe the slate clean can't start with the coach, but they couldn't. So whatever, right. That was the one dictated thing to them. They gave him a chance. It became so abundantly clear that they had to make the choice that, like, Ted finally had to. I mean,
yes.
He couldn't have been sitting courtside and not going, all right.
Right.
I get it.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Because you see that. You see that when you are literally seeing the players kind of tune things out. Remember, we're starting a preseason too. Remember, we already saw like the memes of the players not even listening to preseason scenarios. So yeah. Not sure.
The last one is Kyle Kuzma, and I liked what he said here. Remember, he was asked, do you want to be traded? And he said no.
Yep, that's right.
So, like some people laugh at him and think he's comfortable being on a loser. And others, like myself, like to look at that more optimistically and go, you know what? He likes being here. He knows he's not going to win right now. He's seeing something that is attractive to him. And I like him personally. And I think he's a very good player. Good. Keep him around. Yep. Like, the contract that they gave him doesn't make him untradeable whatsoever. Right. So, like, we could talk about this at another time. And if he changes his mind, he changes his mind. But I like that he wants to be here. And then was asked about next year. He said, I'm going to come back in a different caliber of shape and a different caliber of conditioning, because he realized how being atop the scouting report, essentially as the number one player on the team, changed how people treated him. And therefore, he needs to get into a different level of condition for peak endurance. And I think it's a good acknowledgement of, well, if I am going to truly be a leader on this team, and I've stated out loud I want to be here in words and actions, well, then I need to act that way. Yeah. And right. I loved it. I mean, I said this 2 years ago. I go, Beal's not your franchise player. He is.
Yep.
Like, and I don't think I'm not stupid. I don't think he's Durant or LeBron or Steph or anybody like that. But that guy's a winner in so many ways. And that's why, and you don't even have to pay half the price you have to play for Beal. It's why I like this guy. And I believe him when he says I'm going to come back in better shape and be ready to be closer to a number one. I think he's a very good locker room leader. So let's go. I think in the end, after all of this, I like what happened by the end of all of it. They had a rocky start, but I like what happened by the end of it. They don't have a team that can compete yet. I see what they're talking about now, and the habits got better, and the players are developing, and that's all I need to see at this point.
Yeah.
All right, take a quick break. We'll talk about the start of the NBA playoffs next. Bram watches the show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. All right, welcome back. Bram watches the show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. In about 15 minutes, we'll be joined by the new AD at my alma mater, American University, JM Caparro. And Sal Paolantonio is going to join us at 4:25 today to preview the NFL draft as he gets set for his draft special on ESPN. All right, let's look at the NBA playoffs. What a wild last weekend. Like, there were so many spots that were not determined by the final weekend, especially in the West. And we now are settled where, this is the hope for the Wizards in 3 to 5 years. The Thunder are the 1 seed. that's what they're trying to do. Like they're gonna. I'm assuming that they're gonna continue to go down this path of trying to compile picks. They clearly are gonna have a very high one this year, because they're tied with the Pistons for the best odds going into the lottery. So who knows what pick they'll get, but it's likely top 5 or top 3. So that will be hopefully piece number 2 to go with Bilal and Kuzma and Poole to whatever degree they truly factor into the long-term future. And I would assume that everything else they do will be to compile more and more and more picks with the hopes that in a couple of years, they'll be kind of sitting in the position the Thunder are. And here they are as the 1 seed. 2 seed is Denver, even though they had the same record. Minnesota came just a game back, so they've really climbed up fast. They're the 3 seed. 4 the Clippers, 5 the Mavericks. The Suns barely got the 6 seed over the Pelicans, which means they don't have to do this stupid play-in thing. Pelicans, Lakers are the 7-8 matchup. Kings, Warriors, the 9-10 matchup. I guess that's a disappointment for Sacramento, who kind of fell down the standings with not many excuses as to why. The Warriors are kind of just hanging on for dear life to whatever is left of their dynasty. The Lakers, I think this is the 3rd time in a row they've played in this play-in thing, are going to play the Pelicans. So let's see. Thunder are going to play the 8 seed, which will either be one of those 4 teams. The Warriors-Kings game is worth watching because it's the Warriors and Kings. Winner will get the winner of Lakers-Pelicans. Jeez. I mean, these things are impossible to predict. At least those 2 games seem to matter. The East ones don't feel like that to me, but the West ones certainly do.
Well, and the drama is on now, too, because the Lakers had to play the Pelicans yesterday, and the Lakers beat the brakes off them. They won 124-108. And so now everybody's saying, can you do that 2 times in a row against that team, too? So there's a little bit of drama there.
Here's the reality. Like the 7 seed plays Denver, and the 8 seed plays Oklahoma City. Seriously. Which one do you want? Now, if you're the Lakers, you're playing with fire if you throw that game against New Orleans and make them the 7 seed and make them play Denver, because that means if you lose to either Sacramento or Golden State, you're out. But I'll hear out an argument that I'd rather play the Thunder in a first go around for them with this group in the playoffs than to play the defending champs. I'll hear that out.
I will say it's kind of funny how this could line up if the Lakers were to lose that game and then the Warriors win their game. The Lakers and the Warriors have had like 3 epic matchups this season alone, and then the winner goes on to take on OKC, which I think everyone would say OKC should win whoever they play, but you don't know. Both of those teams can turn it on in the playoffs. So that drama for that play-in, actually, for that 8 spot, I think is massive.
It is. So let's see. So the Thunder await to see who they get. Denver awaits to see who they get. The 3-6 matchup is Minnesota and Phoenix. Oh, chef's kiss. So we get the Brad triumvirate against Ant.
Correct.
Oh man. At the beginning of the season, I never would have thought this, but I don't think Phoenix can beat Minnesota. Like
Phoenix has only been good the second half of not even second half, the last third of the year, and even then it was kind of like how this Caps playoff race has been. It was more incompetence, the reason that they are all the way up into the 6th seed. No one else wanted to take the seeds on there down. So yeah, Minnesota.
Had
really
Phoenix
good.
Lost yesterday, Phoenix would have been the 7th seed and would have had to play the Lakers just to get into this position. Phoenix's depth is going to be in question here. If Phoenix can play up tempo for a full series, I think Minnesota can play up tempo with them. So I like Minnesota in that series. And straight up, I don't know, 6 games? I actually like Minnesota. I think that's a bad matchup for Phoenix. I think if Phoenix had ended up with, say, the Clippers, where it's kind of old on old, I would have liked the depth of the Clippers way more than what Phoenix has, but I wouldn't put it past Durant, Beal, and Booker to outplay the Stars, especially the way Harden kind of disappears in the playoffs sometimes.
Yep.
But that's not the matchup they got. So I kind of like Minnesota going into this. And then the other one's going to be, this will be a great matchup, Clippers and Mavericks. Mavericks have gotten red hot. Luka's been amazing down the stretch.
Irving's been
the Clippers have...
too.
Yeah, the Clippers have 3 Hall of Famers on their team, and they've got a very deep veteran team, but you never know with Harden. In the playoffs, you don't know what you're going to get out of him. I think top to bottom, I like the Clippers better, but, I mean, if Harden is going to be a no-show in games 3 through 5 or something, or whatever it is every year, then I'll like Dallas in it. That game, that series screams 6 or 7, though. Like, there's just almost no chance that that's a short series.
No, I agree. Yeah, that's going to go at least 6, I think, for sure.
Let's see. Over in the East, the NBA game that matters the least of all of them will be the 9-10 Bulls-Hawks matchup, because one will go out, the other will have to either beat the Sixers or the Heat, which they probably won't. And if they do, it's a gift to the 1 seed, honestly.
Yep, for sure.
I mean, that's a joke. If either the Hawks or the Bulls somehow end up as the 8 seed, the Celtics are laughing all the way to the Eastern Conference semifinals. If the Sixers lose to the Heat and then the Sixers end up as the 8 seed, watch out. Like, that is actually a terrible first round matchup for Boston.
Yep.
Terrible. The only reason Philadelphia is where they are is because Embiid missed so much time during the year. Otherwise, they would not have the record that they have.
That's right.
So that's a disaster. And, my favorite team, the Heat, second favorite team, to be fair to Winger and company, but my close second favorite team, that's not a great matchup for Boston either. I mean, the way Boston has played and the team that they have, not picking them to win the East feels foolish. However, they're going to end up with a bad matchup. Like, I'm sure they would way prefer Orlando or Indiana here, and they're not going to get either one of them. So that's a tough matchup for Boston.
Yeah, I mean, I think Boston still would win. They've been pretty dominant all year long. But, yeah, I mean, they're going to get their pound of flesh, whoever's in the 8 seed.
And if the Sixers go and beat the Heat, or either way, Heat go and beat the Sixers, it's a nightmare for the Knicks.
Right.
So the Bing Bongs are going to lose their minds. Like, they're going to lose their minds.
Right.
I think they've got I know they lost the Heat last year. I think they got a better shot with the Heat than they do with the Sixers, because I don't know what they're going to do underneath with Embiid. I think they have a very hard time defending him. So if he's healthy and if they can get through, I'd like Philadelphia to upset New York. If they knock off the Heat and get the 7 seed, I would like them to upset New York, but we'll see. Let's see. 3-6 matchup will be the Bucks and the Pacers. Oh, man. I mean, the Bucks have been so weird. Now Stephen A is reporting Dame Lillard hates Milwaukee, doesn't like living there. The Pacers are the highest scoring team in the league. This screams of an upset. It really does. Only because the Bucks have been weird. They haven't lived up to their potential. I don't think Indiana's as good as them, but the Bucks have been no-shows a lot down the stretch. It screams of an upset that Indiana knocks them off. Yep. And then 4-5 is Cleveland and Orlando. And I saw somebody tweet something like, that's the worst 4-5 matchup anyone's ever heard of in their life, because nobody cares. And I agree with that. Nobody cares. Like, whoever wins that,
thriller, and it's going to go to 7 games.
Probably.
Because they both have players. Like, they both actually been fairly fun to watch, actually.
Probably. Yeah. I'm not going to be like, oh, gosh, I need to tune into that Cavaliers Magic series, though.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's what we got there. And as we progress later in the week and we get the full matchups, we'll make a full pick into who we think's going to get to the finals later. All right, JM Caparro, the new AD at AU, is going to join us next. Bram Watch the Show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. All right, welcome back. Bram Watch the Show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. Earlier today, I had the opportunity to go to the press conference to introduce JM Caparro, who is the new athletic director at my alma mater, American University, and he is graciously giving us some time today. Hey, JM, how are you? Thank you so much. Welcome to DC. Nice to have you on the show.
I'm doing great. Thanks so much, Bram.
All right. I'll talk about your background in a moment, but I overheard you say you lived in Rockville for a period of time. Is that right?
I did, up until the 4th grade.
Okay. What were your parents doing down here?
So my father, who was in the music industry, he used to work for CBS Records way back in the day. So we moved from New Jersey down to here, and we spent a few years down in Rockville, and then we moved back up to New Jersey in the 4th grade.
Wait till you go to Rockville. You will not recognize it.
I'm sure. That's what I hear. My wife and I, we've been searching for homes already, and we are definitely located. We want to be essentially located right in Montgomery County, so it'd be good to get back there.
All right, sounds good. So your background before coming here, you were the deputy athletic director up at Boston College. Tell me about that experience and what you learned from it as you bring it to American University as the AD here.
Yeah, it was a great experience, right? I mean, having worked in the NBA and the pro level for 15 years before joining Boston College, I really had no idea kind of what it meant to be a college administrator, right? But I knew that I wanted to be more involved with the team, with the student athletes, with the coaching staff, and you get that in spades with college athletics. I mean, you are part of the team, you're part of the program, and you're kind of in the weeds with the student athletes and the coaches, so it's incredible. And then the past 9 years, having been able to work with some incredible coaches, I mean, and to be able to win a national championship with our women's lacrosse team was one of the best things of my career so far in 24 years. So just having that camaraderie with the team, with the student athletes, and just being more a part of those programs, that's really why I got into college athletics. And what I'm taking away from that is just the concentrating on the holistic approach to our student athletes, making sure that they have all the necessary resources that they possibly need. Because if you give them a good experience for 4 years, they're more apt to come back and talk to the current student athletes and give back, and hopefully they're having the financial means to kind of give back to the program.
So you were at BC for a long period of time. Obviously, a lot has changed in collegiate sports. Can you kind of take me through what the last 5 to 7 years have been like as from the point of view of a high up administrator in an athletics department?
Certainly. Well, I mean, the past five, there's been so much change even from the past 5 to 7 months, right? Like from a student athlete's perspective, our main charge as administrators is to give them the best opportunity to be successful in the classroom, on the court, on the field, whatever. And that's on the coaches too, right? But the conversation has always been, okay, what do we have from an academic perspective to offer? What do we have from a living situation and strength and conditioning, sports med, mental health, all of those ancillary aspects that kind of go into it that affect the student athlete. But now it's also, what do your facilities look like? And then also now it's, what kind of NIL opportunities do you have? Because I can guarantee every single coach out there, NIL and what we have to offer those kids, that's coming first and foremost in those conversations. So that's been the biggest change over the past few years.
And I would assume that Boston College is in a Power 5 conference. As you come to American University, which is in a lower tier conference, the Patriot League, how are you thinking about NIL and how it affects your ability to field the most competitive teams you can here?
Yeah, it's just a different level of NIL opportunities, right? Like we're not going to have the NIL or collectives, if you will, like some of those larger Power 5 programs. It's just, but I also don't think we need that. We'll have something for our kids without a doubt. It doesn't have to be at the scale of something like BC has or Clemson or Florida State. But we need to arm our coaches with that opportunity, so when they're going out recruiting, that they're able to say that we have NIL opportunities for our prospective student athletes.
So you had mentioned, obviously, many conversations with student athletes these days revolve around money. It's understandable. Is there a case when you're in the position that you're in to talk about the students now about, yes, the importance of money, but legacy at a school, that staying somewhere for a period of time can be important as well?
Yeah, without a doubt it is. I mean, you see it today too, right, with the transfer portal being what it is. I mean, sometimes a kid can go to 2-3 schools in a matter of a few years, and it's like, how do you build a program? How do you build a legacy with that program? It's hard to be a coach these days because not only are you messing with all the NIL stuff, but you also have to maintain your roster year in and year out. So attrition of your roster leads to just, an uncertain future just for your program. So it's really hard in that locker room these days to kind of build that cohesive community and culture. So I really feel for our coaches right now. But it's on me to kind of make sure that I go out there and try to fund all the resources, or go out and try to find the funds that could help increase our resources for the AU coaches and student athletes. And I'm going to take that job extremely seriously because I want to. What do you think? I want our kids to be able to compete.
What do you think will happen with the portal? Like, do you see changes across the collegiate landscape, whether it comes from Congress or lawsuits or the NCAA or the schools themselves? How do you think the schools are going to come around to fixing this?
There has to be, right? I mean, there's got to be some sort of normalcy that kicks in. I mean, right now the toothpaste is so far outside the tube that it's extremely hard to kind of go backwards. And every state has their own laws and rules around NIL, and it's a no-win situation. And I feel bad for our coaches having to deal and kind of live in that world. But until somebody steps up from an NCAA perspective, from a Congress perspective, it's going to be like this, I fear, for a while now.
All right, let's talk about AU for a moment. What did you see in the opportunity here to take over the athletics department at this school at this time?
Yeah, I saw tremendous momentum, right? I think it is a fantastic group of coaches. I think it's a great group of administrators. There are some winning programs here. It gets me back to the Patriot League, which I'm very fond of, having played in it many, many years ago. And it's a high academic, high athletic institution. And that was one of the biggest things, obviously, coming from Boston College, which holds those same merits. I wanted to make sure that I got that in my first AD job.
The school also has a new president coming in. Were you in discussions with the new president as you were kind of going through your process of selecting and choosing to come to AU?
Yes. Yeah. He and I talked over Zoom once during the process. It was great to be able to meet with him and pick his brain about some things. And I'm extremely excited to work with President Alger here in the next few weeks and months. And
he's coming from JMU, which in the last few years built a strong basketball program, built an extremely strong football program. Does he come with a vision of hoping to, I don't know what the best way to put this is, but kind of up the profile of the athletics at American University?
Yeah, we didn't dig too deep. We didn't get that granular, but certainly he has seen what it looks like and what it takes. Obviously, James Madison is a fantastic athletic program, and one that certainly, I would look to as kind of that kind of in the near distant future of kind of what AU could look like. So I'm really interested in kind of picking his brain, seeing how he did things at JMU, because they've built a phenomenal program. And again, that's something that we're going to do here.
JM, thank you so much for taking the time today. It was a pleasure meeting you earlier today, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Absolutely. Don't be a stranger on campus. All right, I'll see you then. All right, that's JM Caparro, who is the new athletic director at American University. One quick thing, Calla, before we go to break here, which, I mean, the internet's incredible. The picture of Tiger Woods shaking hands with a tree really it was almost too perfect. And, the memes that come out of it are just utterly ridiculous. Apparently that was Vern Lundquist. It was. Yeah. That was his Vern. Arm.
Yeah, it was Uncle Vern. Yes, correct.
Because it was Vern's last year calling the Masters, 40 years of calling the Masters. Vern Lundquist is, he might be a top 5 broadcaster, in my opinion, of live broadcaster of all time.
I think you have to put him in top 3 radio, bare minimum, and then, probably top 10, top 5 overall, right? Like radio, his Westwood One calls have been amazing for years and years and years, never lost a step. So,
yeah, his voice on CBS as one of the voices of the SEC was that preceded Brad Nessler, but preceded him. And then he's been pitch perfect on the Masters for years. His calls are iconic. But that picture of Tiger Woods shaking hands with a tree, chef's kiss. Thank you.
Good. Yeah, it's pretty good.
It was pretty darn amazing. Yeah. Anyway, Tiger, by the way, boy, did he fall apart the other day.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Is it shocking? I don't think it's that shocking. We know he's
It was
not,
funny,
right?
too. Like, there was at one point, I guess, in the tournament where he, kind of lifted up his shirt a little bit and was, rubbing, something on his body, whatever. Yep. And you could see he was almost, mummified, how many things he was, wrapped up with. And I'm, watching this guy going, oh, my God, he's, held together by Scotch tape just to try to do this. So there's that.
Wouldn't you do it for the Masters if you were getting in every year? Yeah,
of course.
If he's going to go for it for one time a year, that's the one to go for.
Well, he said afterwards, I'm going to try to play the majors. That's his goal, is to try to play the majors. The one issue with the U.S. Open is because he doesn't play very much, he actually has to qualify for it.
Right.
So that's a possibility. He'll have to go and actually qualify. But the others, like the British Open and the PGA, he's a former champ, so they'll exempt him in.
Yeah,
he'll always exempt into all of it. The U.S. Open apparently doesn't do that, so he's going to have to qualify to do it. But it was great to see him back out there. I love the picture with the tree. Someone posted one picture that was like, and I almost fell over because it was like they juxtaposed it next to a picture of the car that he crashed into the tree, which started everything, with his ex-wife, and started the whole controversy about his personal life with sleeping with however many people he slept with at the time.
Right.
And the picture was basically like, I just wanted to say I'm sorry, and the tree is now shaking hands with him.
God.
I know.
Internet undefeated.
The internet's undefeated. All right, we'll take a quick break. We'll get into all the things that are going on in the NFL land, including a big hiring by the Commanders today. Bram, watch the show, ESPN 630, Sports Capital. All right, welcome back. We were just talking about Vern Lundquist, who made his last call at the Masters after 40 years of doing so. Vern must be in his 80s by now. He, to me, is a top 5 play-by-play announcer of all time. His voice is legendary with SEC football and the Masters mainly for me. I'm sure he did a million other things, but those were the two that really for me stick out from his ability through the years. Apparently, as of Friday, it's possible that another legendary voice is going to hang it up. John Sterling, the voice of the New York Yankees, who's been doing it forever. There is The Athletic has posted a piece saying that there is a press conference scheduled for Friday, and Sterling will not decline to confirm he's retiring, but didn't say what the announcement would be other than to say, I'm going to have a press conference and I'll tell you everything there.
Yep, right.
So maybe this will be his last season. Maybe he's immediately retiring. He is 85, and apparently he's had health issues. And I guess in recent years, he's cut back a lot on the road dates.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. You're right. So that's another old-time great. And they already have his replacements, because he's been missing a lot of time the last few years. WFAN, which airs the Yankees games, have 2 broadcasters, Justin Shackle and Emmanuel Berbari, and they noted this is amazing, who are a combined 24 years younger than John Sterling, taking over in the booth for John Sterling. And I guess we'll see if he's going to pull a Jeter and he wants to do a victory tour for an entire year and get presents from people on the way out, or whether he's got a health issue and he needs to step away and maybe he'll just do a game here or there. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, I saw that was the initial reaction on Twitter of what this was, because why would you kind of do this Friday in April? But I guess, it's a question of whether he does the Jeter tour, or, I mean, look, he could also even just say, I'm only going to do certain home dates, and then, probably swipe that last home series, whoever they're playing or whatever there, which is probably like what I would think would be a good one. But yeah, you don't know. Maybe, look, we saw some Nick Backstrom this year, right? Start up a season, things ain't going right. Call it quits, because you're not going to just drag yourself through the whole entire season. So, yeah.
Yes.
We'll see.
All right. Today is first major visit day for the Commanders. 10 days away, boys and girls. 10 days away from the draft. We can get this all over with. Jaden Daniels is the player who's expected to be here today. Drake May is expected to be here tomorrow. For those of you who are worried about J.J. McCarthy, he is expected to take a visit later this week. And then there will be a bunch of others that are coming through. Chop Robinson is a name of interest here. Edge out of Penn State. Obviously, an edge rusher is someone that Washington's going to be looking at, I would think, high in the second round. There's a couple of different tight ends that are potentially coming in here as well for visits. I think that's a priority now. So now that we're getting a little bit closer, now that the visits are happening, and I have no real news on what, I expect or have heard so far from the visits. And I guess, if anything leaks out, which they've been unbelievably good at keeping under wraps here to this point, I'll let you know what I hear, but I haven't heard much about it. I think we're all pretty clear that the second overall pick will not be traded. They are going to select a quarterback with it. Right now, I'd say the leader in the clubhouse is Jaden Daniels. I don't know if you saw Adam Schefter went on a lot of local podcasts around here which I was surprised. Congratulations to them for getting him to do that. And he said on one of them, go ahead, it's safe to go buy your Jaden Daniels jersey, which is just reiterating what he had been saying on the air at ESPN, that he believes that that's who it's going to be. I have kind of heard through a couple of people that he was kidding when he said that, but like still he said it. And here we are. So I guess we'll find out in 10 days, unless you hear otherwise from the Daniels camp that he, for some reason, doesn't want to be here. I guess we'll see in 10 days.
No, exactly. I definitely thought he was probably kidding there, too. I mean, look, it's no one knows. Like, that's the thing here, too.
No one knows.
We know Schefter is a national reporter, and like this is just reiterating what has happened with this team since the new regime is in. Nobody knows anything, and that's why people are grasping for straws for any storyline with this team, because they're so tight-lipped. The lid has been shut so tight, no one knows. So, yeah, when I saw that, I just kind of thought, okay, that's Schefter, kind of placating to his audience there. That's what I thought.
Yeah, I agree. All right. So let's get into the draft a little bit from this point of view, which is, all right, they're taking a quarterback at 2. They're not trading out of it. I think it'll be Jaden Daniels, but we'll see, over the next 10 days. Let's talk about the rest of the draft capital early. It's really come to my attention that tight end is becoming a major position of desire and need, and that it's been a focal point, apparently, over the last month or so. That's kind of, word has been trickling down there. So now a couple of things are at play. I've kind of surmised or thought that, and they may not be able to execute this, but considering they did not make a move in free agency to address left tackle other than to re-sign Cornelius Lucas at a low rate, and he's their swing tackle, that this needs to be addressed in the draft. And because there is a dearth of very good prospects at the tackle position, there's upwards of 6 to 8 of them that are going to go in the first round, that Washington may watch how the board falls through the first half of the draft and then see if there's a necessity to go jump up back into the first round if there's a willing, seller of a pick late in the first round, like late teens, early 20s, or if they think they can wait it out and use their first, second round pick, which is the second pick of the second round, on a tackle. But I think we can all agree that it is of major need. So they have the capital to do this. They've got 4 picks in the, they got 5 picks, right, in the top 100.
Yep.
So they've got the ability to move up if they need to, or they could wait it out. Either way, they're going to probably address this position. But more and more and more, I'm hearing about tight end. This is also, even after signing Zach Ertz, I think it's clear they need a young pass-catching tight end, because Ertz is a bridge player at best for them. Probably not a player that I would expect to play a ton of, downs this year. I don't think, based especially on his injury history. They do a lot of 12 personnel. So with this new offense under Cliff Kingsbury, so 2 tight ends is probably going to be something you'll see more of here. So they need to get a young pass catching tight end. I think that's a clear need anyway. And I'm hearing more and more that they want to get one high, like they want to go get their Sam Laporta, whoever that may be. There is a tight end out of Iowa that's visiting named Joel, so we'll have to see if he's the one of note that they're looking at. But this is a position where in recent years, Laporta wasn't a first-round pick. Brock Bowers will be this year. Dalton Kincaid was a year ago. But most of the, very good high-end, plug-them-in starting caliber pass-catching tight ends, you can actually get them in the second and third round. Dallas did it recently with Pendergast and Ferguson, Laporta. Luke Musgrave went not in the first round to Green Bay, turned out to be a very good player for them, especially late in the season. I think Washington is looking for that person, but to get that person, they probably have to go relatively high. Then I already mentioned Chop Robinson is coming in for a visit. They need an edge rusher. They have, without Sweat and Young, they went out and spent money on Dorrance Armstrong, so that's one side. The other side currently is a rotational piece of Dante Fowler, Cleveland Farrell. I don't know what they're going to do with Jamin Davis yet. I think that's of interest to watch. How are they going to utilize him? The linebackers seem to have been chosen to be the very aggressive type, so maybe they don't feel like they need to get a great edge rusher, but Robinson, is starting to feel like there's a necessity for somebody in that spot to either be or ascend to be the starter over there. I guess KJ Henry could impress them enough to maybe get more downs, but there's an opening there too. So let's just talk about this for a second, because if tight end is zooming up the board for them in terms of need, and the players that they want are early in the second round, but they still need to get a tackle, and they do need to get an edge, and oh, by the way, they don't have a number one corner, well, something's going to fall off here. And considering how much I heard about tight end, I wonder where tackle's going to go. And the whole time, through all this process, when they didn't, and I think wisely didn't do anything in free agency, because I think they would have overpaid for average players at left tackle. And then they've gone out of their way not to be quote unquote stuck in any contract. All of these deals they did with all these players are short term, not cap prohibitive. You can get out of them if they're not going particularly well, or in the case of Allegretti, if he's not a full-time starter, he's a very viable backup at that price. You didn't extend yourself in a way to somebody. They all were thought through, short term, not cap prohibitive, don't hurt you down in the future, but they still don't have a starter at that position. And I have as much as I think they need a tight end, as much as they need a rush end, as much as they need a corner, I have no idea how in the world you could draft a quarterback, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, whoever it may be, and not have a viable starter at left tackle. To me, that's a priority. And the way I heard about tight end, it made me feel like it is possible that if they can't get back into the first round, that they'll take a tight end and the edge very high and deal with tackle at a later date. And that, to me, is an interesting game plan, honestly, if that's the way it goes.
Well, I've said this from the get-go. The reason why I think Jaden Daniels would be more successful faster here is because of his mobility. If Jaden is the pick, then they are truly banking on him to avoid some of the pressure and make plays off schedule basically from the get-go. And if that's what they're doing and they're saying we're going to add another weapon instead of a left tackle, that's their plan. They can stick to it if they want. The other side of this, too, is, as you just said, with the term and the contracts and stuff, maybe they like a veteran tackle on the other side that they think they can get for cheaper, because it's going to be, what do we call it? Wave 2 and 3.
For 1 year.
Yeah, for wave 2
and 3. For a bridge 1 year deal.
Yeah, or you never know. They can make a draft day deal with somebody and send a late round pick to somebody for a veteran tackle,
Maybe.
Like a Charles Leno type, where it's an older type guy, but he's literally just a stopgap for a year or two. So, I think they're just leaving it open. Plus, as you said, they don't want to overpay for somebody that's not going to be that good that you're going to have to replace anyways a couple of years down the line. So I think they're kind of just leaving their options open is what I'm
They
thinking.
are. This does reinforce, the way I kind of felt from the get-go. There was no way they were going to be able to address everything in one offseason. There just was too much.
Yep.
But I do think that there are some pillar spots that I think they need to think about, aggressively now, and when left tackle came up in free agency, I kept looking at the pool of players available, and I went, well, they could overpay for one of these guys, but none of them are Pro Bowl players. Or they could wait it out, and they have so much draft capital, it just makes too much sense for me for them to try to cut a deal to get back into the first round, considering how many good tackle prospects are available to them. And I still think that's a distinct possibility. I just heard so much about tight end recently that it's made me think they may not consider the tackle situation as quote unquote dire as the way I'm kind of looking at it. And I'm hear you on, and this is if they do take Daniels, I'll hear you on, hey kid, you may run for your life a little bit more than we'd like, but we're going to fix that as soon as we can.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
But that said, that is, in my opinion, a scary way to go into it. I think you're going to invest and turn this into your franchise player. You have to have adequate protection around him. We saw what a bad offensive line looks like with a young quarterback last year. And the last thing I want to see, the last thing I want to be talking about in week 18 next year is breaking a sack record again, or how many hits this player took, during the course of the season by their own fault or by ineffectiveness of the offensive line. And granted, the upgrade, Biotish is a massive upgrade from where they were at that position. I'm willing to hear out Allegretti's going to be a starter, but it's probably as good, if not better, than what we had. I like Cosme. I'm actually willing to hear out a redo on Wiley, that maybe that offense wasn't the best for him. Maybe you didn't see the best out of him. Maybe the quarterback not processing a little fast enough was part of it with him. I'm willing to go, let's reset with Wiley. Let's go, he's a pro. Let's give that a second chance and see, I don't expect him to make the Pro Bowl, but maybe he's a little better than he showed last year in a new offense. So I'm willing to hear that one out with him. I have, my expectations are at high, but they're not low either. I'm going to stay medium on Andrew Wiley and go, you know what? I'm willing to hear out a reset on him over there, but you cannot have a right-handed quarterback with a bad left tackle. That's malpractice. So that's why I feel like they're going to do something here. It's just that I heard so much about tight end. I went, you guys can't get everything, but if you prioritize tight end, it might mean kicking the tackle can to the third round or in the second wave of free agency. And that to me was, I don't know, just a surprising turn of events in terms of game planning of how to fill out the roster from here.
Yeah, I mean, look, here's also just the reality of the situation. And as you mentioned, you just can't fill in everything. And so maybe they like the players at tight end long-term more at that position than they like the tackles. Yes, we've heard tackles are deep this draft and that they could trade into the late first round and get one, but maybe they like the tight ends more for longevity, or they think that's going to be more important down the stretch for them. I don't know what the right way to prioritize this roster's needs are. That's why they're getting paid the big bucks to do it. We all knew some way, shape, or form, some position group was going to suffer. I don't think we said it was
that's right.
Tackle, but I mean, if that's what they've settled in on over these last few weeks, all right. We all just knew, though, they weren't going to fill in everything in one offseason.
No.
So this is where we're at.
And honestly, I don't think they have a number one corner right now.
Yep.
And I haven't even mentioned that. I expect them to address tackle in the draft, but after hearing what I heard this weekend, maybe not.
Right.
Not early.
Right.
They're clearly picking offensive linemen in this draft. They have too many draft picks not to. That's going to happen. It just may not happen at the spots I expected.
Yeah.
They need an edge rusher. Chop Robinson, if he for some reason is there early in the second round, that seems like a distinct possibility for them to jump and take him and take a chance on him.
Sure.
Tight end is now streaming up the draft board because I think that they like a few people and feel like there's a need. I agree with that. Well, that still leaves corner, which I talked about weeks ago going, you know what? I think that's something that I would watch in terms of a trade. I would watch something on the open market with a trade because they're clearly taking a quarterback. They have all these other needs. There aren't a lot of corners that are screaming, take us early in the draft this year. I think that's something that needs to be, and we still have a lot of cap room. That's something that needs to be addressed, I think, via a trade if possible. But that's another one that needs to be watched when the draft rolls around next week.
Yeah, right. No, I definitely. I mean, we also don't know. They could be swerving everybody too. They could be. You could be just trying to, swerve some of the draft board. So when they do trade up, people don't get as worried about one position as the other. I mean, that's the kind of the reality of the situation for them too, is they might just be trying to throw misdirection out there too. That wouldn't surprise me.
It could be. Adam Schefter then, and the team actually announced this, that they made a hiring of a former NFL executive by the name of Dave Gardy, whose title with the team is going to be Senior Vice President of Football Initiatives. Mm-hmm. Okay. And this is what he's going to do: handle assorted in-game management duties, and will support the coaching staff and front office on compliance with league protocols, officiating trends, and health and safety guidelines. This guy worked in the league office, knows in and out all of the different compliance and rules. He's going to arm them with the best information possible moving forward.
Yep.
This is a home run hire.
Right.
This is what good teams do. Like I was really, really happy to see that. To hear someone who's going to walk in the door and explain the little bits of edges to our staff to try to help them navigate a league that changes its rules and its protocols weekly.
Yep.
And I think it's just a fantastic decision by the team to go about and do something like that. And everybody who wrote about him was like, of all the, I always listen to like the outside league people. They're like, home run. This is out of the box. Another team should have done this years ago. Things like that.
Yep.
So it seems like it's a great hire.